theater.
It's group theater, yes.
And a lot of you may not know this, Stuart was doing some very radical stuff to the point where it was getting you in trouble. And I think we should start with some of those stories.
Well, as a matter of fact, Cecil was in the production that got Carolyn and myself arrested for obscenity. It was a production, believe it or not, of Peter Pan. And it was back in 1968. And we did it as a sort of political cartoon about what was going on in those times. As an anti-war protest. The Democratic Convention had just taken place in Chicago, and we had all gone there and been tear gassed and beaten by the Chicago Police Department. And that was sort of the inspiration for doing Peter Pan, believe it or not. And the sequence in which they all fly off to Neverland was accomplished by them dropping acid. And the acid trip was portrayed as a psychedelic light show projected on the bodies of 7 naked dancers, one of which is sitting next to me. And that was enough. And that got us all busted.
You know, I realize I've probably seen Carolyn Gordon naked, spent more time with her naked than any other woman that I've never slept with.
We enjoyed every minute of it, right, Cecil?
So, how do you make the leap then? You're doing sort of this very politically charged stuff, and your career would eventually really be defined in a lot of ways by Lovecraft. I know a lot of people, you know, in the 60s there was a bit of a Lovecraft resurgence, especially on campuses. Is that where you first discovered his work?
I actually read Lovecraft when I was a teenager, before I went to the university. But we did actually, at Organic Theater, we did a play called Poe, which was about the last 3 days of Edgar Allan Poe's life, which is a great mystery. No one knows exactly what happened to him. He disappeared on the streets of Baltimore. And it was kind of again, sort of a hallucinatory, you know, we're in the mind of Poe, jumping between his life story and his fiction, you know, his great tales. When you read Poe, and it was the Corman movies that led me to Poe. Roger Corman made several great films based on Poe's writing, and made me read Poe. And then going from Poe to Lovecraft is a very, very easy sort of short jump. Lovecraft was very influenced by Poe and actually imitated his writing style. So I remember I read, first Lovecraft I read was Dreams in the Witch House, which scared the crap out of me. And I remember it was in the middle of the summer, and I ended up closing all the windows because I didn't want the witch to get in. You know, it was like 100 degrees outside. Yeah, Lovecraft has always been a part of my life.
And while these guys were getting arrested and doing all kinds of radical things, Jeff, what was going on with you? You were also heavily involved with live theater at the time, correct?
Not quite that early. But yeah, you know, like a lot of people, I started drama class in high school for an easy A and meet girls. It's an old story. And then I really got the bug when I was fortunate enough to go to a really seminal theater program at a small college near where I grew up. It was one of those happy accidents. And it really steeped me in the appreciation for theater, variety, repertory, and I just had incredible people around me, pace setters, just like, that's what you aspire to. And so I did a lot of theater before I ever went to LA and sort of tried my hand at film and television. So, you know, 3 years there, 3 years at a training program at the University of Washington, and then I jumped right into sort of regional theater. And when I moved to LA, I kind of kept myself vital and paid the bills by doing theater. So, yeah, we're both from a theater background, which really kind of gives us something. We come from the same sort of place.
I think if you can do theater, you can do anything. You know, I think theater is the most difficult, you know, of the performing arts. And I think it's what separates the men from the boys, really. You know, it's going from theater to film is not that difficult. And it's interesting, you run into a lot of movie stars who've never done theater, and
They fall apart on stage, they don't know.
it's really rough. Really.
I'll throw this open to everyone on the panel. I mean, in terms of what we've had in your hand, Stuart, there's obviously theater, movies, and television. Everyone else here has worked in some degree. I'm not sure if you work in television.
I have, no.
Okay.
So I'm strictly from the theater world, strictly
From theater. Okay. Well, for everyone else, I was wondering, do you have a preference of those mediums? Is there one that works better for you as, perhaps a performer or a creator or a writer?
Well, I think I like theater the best, I have to say. There's something about it that's so immediate, and it's a two-way communication between the performer and the audience, which you don't get in movies. Movie is an optical illusion. It's projected on a wall, and it doesn't matter to the movie whether there's an audience or not. But when you're doing live theater, every night is different, and you really respond to the energy that you're getting from the audience. And I often like to do shows where the audience is a character in the play, and they can actually interact. So it's even everyone's getting all excited about 3D movies. When you're in the theater, it's all 3D. It's 4D.
Uber 3D.
Yeah, it's real. It's happening to you. And I often like to play with people. Always think when they go into a theater that I used to think theater was sort of like bad movies, that you're sitting in the balcony watching these little people walking around the stage. But then doing the experimental theater, you start realizing we're all in the same room together, and we can actually interact, and we can touch each other. We can do all kinds of things. I did one play where I locked the audience into the theater, and it made them believe that they were being attacked by the actors. And it was called the game show, and we had plants in the audience that would be grabbed and pulled on stage and beaten, and their clothes torn off and raped, and it was the idea of the play was it was going to be a play about apathy. I wanted the last speech was someone says, "Look at you, you just sit there and let all of this happen." But we never got a chance to deliver that speech because the audience always got up and attacked the actors. every performance ended, it never ended actually, about 2/3 of the way through with the riot, the audience jumping up and stopping the show. And it was like, wow, this is great. It was great for me because I wasn't getting beaten up. But the actors at first said, I don't know if we want to continue doing this show. So we worked out a sort of a safeguard for them so that the audience was distracted while they were able to get away when that moment came. It always came exactly at the same point in the show. It was as if they had written, and then the audience riots.
The amazing thing about Stuart is that this philosophy right here, he was able to translate that to a film experience. When Re-Animator opened, it really was a group participation experience for audiences. It was almost like a live theater experience. The audience would get up, yell at the screen, run out of the theater, come back when they could handle it again. It was a group experience, and a lot of the time, film is a passive medium where you're kind of privately watching it with other people. But Stuart has this uncanny ability to just cohese everyone into the experience. It becomes kind of a phenomenon. So if you've ever seen Re-Animator, a lot of people say, well, man, I saw it by myself or with a couple of my friends. The true experience is to see it with a full house. And it really rocks.
Absolutely. I have to ask Carolyn, Stuart putting on a play where the actors are being beaten and people are being locked in the theater, is that the kind of thing that makes you fall more in love with him, or basically, I'm interested.
Funny you should ask. We were in college when Stuart did that play, and we broke up over it. So, no, I did not approve. I did not think that was, I thought it was immoral to do that to people. Make people believe that such violence was being wreaked on them. Make people believe that the stage doors were chained shut, when it turned out they were breakaway chains, but they didn't know that. So no, it was, did not make me fall more in love with it, no. Quite the reverse.
What brought you back?
I said I was sorry.
Some other girl got interested in him and I did not like her. Simple folks, come on, let's get it.
Well, I think we're all very glad that that worked out because you guys have made some amazing stuff together. Let's go back to Re-Animator then. Of course, that's where everything started. Obviously, Poe was a lot easier to do for live theater, the nature of the stories. In my opinion, anyways, than Lovecraft because of the fantastical nature and multi-dimensional type of things. Did you decide to pursue Lovecraft as a filmmaker because you were then able to tell those kind of stories via the medium?
Well, it was funny when, back around, I guess this was in the mid-'80s, there were all these vampire movies being made. It was, Frank Langella was doing Dracula, and there was, all of these movies about vampires. And I was kind of bored with vampires, and I said, I wish somebody would do a Frankenstein movie. I really like the old Frankenstein series. And somebody suggested, said, what about, did you ever read Herbert West Re-Animator by H.P. Lovecraft? And I never heard of the story. It turned out that the story was out of print. You couldn't even get a copy of it. And
Do you remember who suggested that?
it was a girlfriend of Carolyn's brother, actually.
Small little things.
Yeah, and so I was just kind of, finally went to the public library, and it turned out they had a copy of it in their private collections in Chicago. And I had to fill out a card requesting it, and 6 months later, they sent me a note saying, you can come to the library and we will let you read this story. And it was in an old pulp magazine. They brought out to me, sort of like that scene in Citizen Kane, where they sat me down at a table, and here's the book, and they put it in front of me. And I turned the pages, and the pages started crumbling. They were like made out of pulp paper, and they're yellow paper. And I said, finally, could I Xerox this? Would it be okay if I just made a Xerox copy? Because the stories were not long. There was like 30 pages, I think. And there's 6 installments, I think, of a serial. And anyway, I brought them home and I read them, and I'm going, wow, this is fantastic. There's a movie here. There's this. It was interesting. Originally, we thought we'd been doing some television with the theater, and we decided that maybe this could be like a little sort of TV series. We do 6 episodes, kind of the way Lovecraft wrote it. And nobody was interested. And then we met Brian Usna, who had money to make a movie, but his project had fallen apart, and showed him what we were working on, and he said, this is a feature. Let's do a feature. And I said, well, we could do maybe the first 3 stories. He said, no, throw all of them on, all 6 stories. And that's kind of what ended up becoming Re-Animator.
We should probably also mention Dennis at this point as well.
Yeah, Dennis Paola, he was my buddy from high school, and Dennis and my roommate in college, and we wrote things together, since we were 14 years old. And Dennis got involved with Bill Norris, who was a member of the Organic Theater Company, and the 3 of us were working together on what became the script for Re-Animator. It was getting a chance to direct a feature film. It was kind of amazing. I had done all this theater, but I had never gone to film school. I really knew nothing about making a movie. I was very lucky that I had a great director of photography who would say things to me like, Stuart, you cannot put the camera over there.
Your editor will hate you for that.
Yeah, Matt Hallberg was the Swedish director of photography. And he'd say, Stuart, you can't put the camera there, you've crossed the line. And I'm like, what line? I don't see a line.
I remember these conversations. You would go, no, I can do it.
Yeah.
Also, that you can.
It won't come together, he would say. And I said, well, sure, you just take the 2 pieces of film and come together. It's so hard about that. But anyway, with a lot of help, was able to direct Re-Animator. And it was a life-changing experience.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
When you first read the script and got a look at the Herbert West character, what were your impressions?
Honestly, I thought it was a really impactful piece, and I thought, first of all, the original script was different in that it was, the focus was a lot, there were a lot of scenes between the lovers and how this whole thing was affecting them, right? And those scenes were shot, but somehow in the process it was condensed down. But I thought he was a great character. Honestly, I knew nothing about Lovecraft when I went in and auditioned. First meeting Stuart, and he said, you know, this is based on Lovecraft, and I just bullshitted my way through it. Oh, wow.
I think you once told me that you thought Lovecraft was a boat.
Well, there's Chris Craft boats. So that's the first thing I thought. Chris Craft, wait, Lovecraft.
Lovecraft.
The Lovecraft. Take a cruise on the Lovecraft. And so, but I had nothing to judge it by. I hadn't done a lot of film work, and so I was just thrilled to actually get a chance to try to put my hand at creating a character in the film medium, which I was fairly fresh coming to. So I was really excited about that. I just had no idea or concept that this movie would blow up into the fact that we're sitting here, how many years later, talking about it. I just, humbled by it. I just didn't see it coming. Not at all.
Carolyn, what were your impressions?
I was going to say, Jeffrey, the first rehearsal that I attended, which was at Barbara Crampton's house, I didn't know any of you. I had just arrived in LA. And I walked in and I saw you and I saw Bruce. And I didn't know which of you was playing which. I thought you were both really cute. And I didn't know who was gonna play the geeky Herbert West. These guys are both very handsome. And I have to say, I was amazed. Now it seems obvious to me, but at the time it was, could have gone either way.
Well,
so you know.
Carolyn, it has to be said that Bruce is really sort of an unsung hero of Re-Animator. He had I believe he has the harder role. It is very difficult to play the straight guy who is being put upon, being manipulated, and still have care for that guy, and have empathy for him. I mean, it's really hard to be the guy who's constantly saying, Herbert, no! And he was a great foil for me. The two of us worked so well in tandem, because that could have been not gone well. And the great David Gale, too, who we lost way too early. He was phenomenal, too.
I'm curious, how many here have read the stories, Re-Animator stories?
Oh, good. Yeah, good.
Yeah, that's good.
My brother's here. He read it. Josh.
Well, I think it's great because after the movie came out, they reprinted the story. It became possible to get a copy of it again. And in the story, it's all being told by this narrator who's never named, and that was really the basis for the character that Bruce played. You have all these crazy people in the story. We needed someone who's normal. We needed somebody who's the audience can relate to. And so I was thinking you need a character that the audience can sort of become.
They can go, that's me.
That would be me in that
He's asking the questions and responding the way a normal person would respond to his madness. So
I'm not sure that's true of this audience.
These are the hardcore people.
Yeah.
The backbone of the business.
Well, actually, Cecil, it'd be interesting to know what your impressions were when you saw your friend's movie for the first time.
nothing was surprising. I mean, I thought it was a fantastic piece of work and a lot of fun. And you know, that the more ghoulish, the more outlandish, the more special effects you could play with, the happier Stuart always was. And it was so it was fantastic.
Where does that ghoulish love of all that, those bodily fluids and fantastic things happening come from?
Yeah.
Are you a monster kid?
I actually used to read famous monsters in Filmland magazine, you know, that was, but I was actually, as a kid, was not allowed to see horror movies. And, oh, I know it's terrible. Very people.
That was my relative.
Yeah, I was not allowed to see horror films, so I would sneak off to see them sometimes, and would be so scared by them that I would have nightmares for several years. Actually, the first movie that really scared the crap out of me, I have to admit, was called Abbott and Costello meet Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It somehow snuck past my parents' radar, you know, because Abbott and Costello, and it was funny, I saw it again recently, and it involves, and it's the only Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde movie where they use a hypodermic needle to, you know, to become
That's neat.
Mr. Hyde. And so, and it ends up with Abbott and Costello sitting on the needle and turning into monsters. And so it's like, and the movie ends with everybody becoming just monsters. Which, you know, I think it's sort of, all my films are kind of about that, really.
You know, just thinking about the illusionists, I was, in the early days of the organic theater, I mean, we struggled. And, you know, we did everything. We built the sets, we hung the lights, we found or made the costumes. We were always looking for things for special effects. And, you know, we would work 10 hours a day in a cold rehearsal hall or church basement in Chicago in February, and we'd go out into the cold winter night and walk home because we didn't have money for bus fare or cab fare, and Stuart would sit there for hours and hours and hours trying to figure out how to make us bleed better or how to get more blood into a blood pack. And,
Or better looking blood.
or better looking blood.
Or edible blood. Or washable blood. I know the formulas for both.
We did a production once outdoors in Madison of Titus Andronicus, which is Shakespeare's bloodiest play. I don't know if you've ever read it, but it's really a bloodbath, you know. And we had, you know, because we had to wash the costumes, we made this washable blood out of detergent. It was for baby shampoo, that's what it was, with red food coloring in it. And it was done outdoors in this pit, you know, with the audience sitting around the edges of the pit watching it all. And in the middle of the show, it started to rain, and all the bodies are lying there, and they all start foaming.
They were very keen by it.
Yeah, Stuart was you know, Stuart wouldn't do anything that would possibly hurt an actor.
Stuart Gordon, are you talking about?
The level of sophistication was amazing. I think we had some because was it Lou or what? Andre? Who was it? Someone had a block of wood.
Oh, Fred Stone.
Fred Stone had a block of wood strapped to their back so that they could get stabbed in the back.
Wow.
And that was the only production. It wasn't a really practical night. And one night,
They missed.
they got the block, but the knife went all the way through.
Yeah, and his reaction to it was sort of like, ow, ow. Which, yeah, it sort of occurred to me that probably is what would happen if someone really got stabbed. They would sort of go, probably went, ow, and then
So, I don't know what it says about you. You've got a reputation for both torturing your actors, but they keep coming back for more, so they must love what you're doing.
There is one thing that you should know before we leave the subject of blood and torture, which is that Stuart is the most squeamish man I've ever met. He gets a nosebleed, he has to sit down and put his head between his knees. If the dog steps on a little shard of glass and gets a tiny nick in his paw, Stuart has to sit down and put his head between his knees. When the kids gets, you know, a tooth comes out, there's a little bit of blood. Stuart has to sit down. But this is, I think, what makes him good at what he does. He knows exactly what makes you queasy, and he knows how to build that and build up to it and deliver.
There's always a point when I'm making a movie where I'm shooting some really bloody scene, and I go, this is the scene where I would leave the theater. I would walk out right in this very scene.
I remember during Re-Animator, you have these special effects guys, and they're like, they spend hours putting blood drops and driblets and everything, and it's like, and then it's time to shoot, and they come on, and they go, so it's ready, Stuart. And Stuart would go, yeah, give me that gallon of blood. And just go, now we're ready. And they would go like, what the fuck was the 2 hours?
Well, life is bloody. I mean, you see those pictures.
Clean it up.
Did you see those pictures of the Boston Marathon? They were so damn bloody. It was, they always in movies, they're always, this is something about American films that kills me, is that they don't want to show blood. It's sort of like, if something's bloody, we can't show that. When in reality, that's the way it really is. And I think if you're going to show something violent, I think you have to show it you have to be truthful about it. I think you have to show that it hurts, and I think you have to show that it's messy and bloody and awful.
Yeah, I always thought it was ironic that The Passion of Christ, one of the bloodiest movies I've ever seen, was totally and completely accepted by America, and churches would fill charter buses to go see it. And
bloodier than anything I ever read.
And all the guys that did all the special effects makeup on that thing were the same guys that do, our movies. They were hired to do that effect and that effect.
That's Greg Cannon, I think.
It's just,
But that's been the case throughout the ages. The great artists back in classical times always wanted to paint religious topics because that way they could get away with painting incredibly violent and bloody scenes like the crucifixion and the,
Or scenes of hell.
Salome, bringing the head of John the Baptist on a platter, that kind of stuff. They wanted to do that stuff, and the church would okay it if it had a holy purpose.
So the church judges all this stuff. Then they turn around.
Look at the original monster artists, guys like Ron Squash, were able to get away with what they did because they were painting demons and depiction of hell, and so these crazy monsters in his paintings was kind of like a little workaround.
Did you ever see a painting of talking about Basham Bruegel, who did a painting called The Triumph of Death? Have you ever seen this painting? It's like Army of Darkness. It's an army of skeletons killing thousands of people. I mean, it's an incredible painting. And it's all very detailed, and it's, there's people being speared and burned, and, it's all these, army of these, kind of grim reapers. Amazing stuff. I mean, the inspiration is there, in art. And Shakespeare, we're talking about bloody stuff, and then, or King Lear, he always had to have a scene in it with a lot of blood. He's got, a guy getting his eyes gouged out on stage in King Lear. He's got people bathing their arms in blood on Julius Caesar, after the assassination. Blood effects. Yeah.
Titus Andronicus, they kill these guys and then they put them into a meat pie and serve it to their mother. She doesn't know it, they tell her.
A girl stumbles out on stage, she's been raped and had her tongue cut out and her hands chopped off so that she can't tell who did it.
And so she gets a stick in her stubs and writes the names in the dirt.
Yeah.
That's Shakespeare.
Do you remember Buckets of Blood?
Yeah.
Where all the deaths were done on Shakespearean themes.
Oh, no, it's a Theater of Blood.
Theater of Blood.
Theater of Blood.
Right.
Anybody here seen that movie? Theater of Blood. It's a great film. It's about killing the critics, which we can really appreciate.
Remake. Vincent Price went afro too. Okay, speaking of censorship, you had a very intense experience with that with your next film, From Beyond. I hope everyone's got a chance to get their hands on the recent re-release, which brought Blu-ray for the first the director's cut, which has all the good stuff in it. So let's talk a little bit about that film and specifically about rescuing it.
Well, when Re-Animator was released, there was so much blood in Re-Animator that they knew that they could never get an R rating on it, so they released it unrated, which people still are able to do. Every now and then a movie does come out unrated, and I don't understand why more people don't do it. They always say, "Oh, it's not going to be, you're not going to be able to advertise or this or that," but that's not really true. We were able to do TV spots, we did newspaper ads, we did everything. It was no different really than an R-rated movie.
Except that some theater chains refuse to screen an unrated movie, and some. I remember there were two papers in LA that, and the LA Times said you can buy ads, but there can't be any graphics because you're unrated. But the Herald Examiner, which existed at that time, said, "Yeah, we don't have a problem. Just go ahead.
Yeah.
Put whatever graphics you want." So.
But anyway, what happened was when we did From Beyond, they did the distributor insisted that it get an R rating, and when we submitted it to the MPAA, they were so pissed off about Re-Animator that I think they wanted their revenge on us, and we ended up having to submit that movie I think a dozen times to finally get an R rating on it, and they cut big chunks out of the movie. I think some of the best moments in the movie were lost by the MPA, and I even had a meeting with the woman at the MPA to sort of plead my case, and she started shaking her finger in my face like I was in the principal's office. And, "What did you think we were going to do when you show a person sucking on someone's eyeball?" What did you think would happen? I'm sorry, please. Anyway, for years after that, people kept coming up to me when DVDs started coming out. They said, "Are you going to do an unrated version of From Beyond?" And I said, "I wish I could, but I think all that material has been lost. All of the things that we had to cut, no one could find them. I actually searched for them for years." One day I got a call. This was about 5 years ago, when From Beyond finally ended up going to MGM, and they said, "We found this little film can, and there's these little trims in it. Can you come and identify it?" It's like getting called to the board to identify like a relative or something. And it was this little can of film, and it wrote on it, MPAA trims. And the editor had saved them all, God bless him, Lee Percy. And it was like putting it together. It was like a jigsaw puzzle, trying to figure out where each of these trims went. And it was, the first people said, you're going to not be able to put these back because, I don't know, it's funny talking about film now. I was talking about trims with the film class, and they had no idea what I was talking about. Those little scraps of film, pieces that they literally cut out, which they have markings on, grease pencil marks on them and scratches. And they said, "You're never going to be able to make this look as good as the rest of the movie." But now, thanks to all of the digital, magic, we were able to restore the film and put these pieces back, and it's really seamless. You cannot tell what's old and what's new and so forth. And it was a wonderful feeling. I was working on the film 20 years after I had made it, and kind of giving it back its mojo, which was, I felt wonderful. We even got Carolyn to come back in and do some recording of some moans and groans for one of the sequences that had been trimmed beyond recognition. So it was a great experience.
We recently had the pleasure of screening that version of the film in Toronto. And afterwards, we did a Skype interview with Barbara Crampton, who is just the biggest booster of the work. She loves it, she gets excited. And we started talking about, there's a lot going on in these movies, and he asks a lot of you guys, what was the most uncomfortable stuff that you had to put up with making this stuff? And she just laughs, she's like, "Well, it's fine for me, I only have to take my clothes off sometimes." Because those guys are covered in blood, and slime, and layers of prosthetics, and latex.
Tell me about it.
Tell us about it. I mean, that movie is intense.
Yeah, my recollection of making that movie was pretty taxing, really. I counted it up once, and I got into that hideous bald perennial growing about 30 days, 30 times. it gets pretty old pretty quick because there was a whole device underneath my prosthetics that allowed the dog dick to move. So Stuart and I always had a fight about it. He goes, well, actually, it's just a red, asparagus or something. No, it's a dog dick. That's what it is. She bites off the dick, right? Every guy in the place goes, oh, they don't go, oh, red asparagus. No, they don't.
Horrified vegetarians.
I remember one time when I had to eat brains. Remember this story? Had to eat brain, and it had this rubber brain, and it actually had a bite out of it, like molded, like it was cast with a bite out of it. And I'm eating it, and Carolyn comes in and says, "Crawford, what are you doing?" And my line was, "It's delicious."
Crawford, please don't eat those.
Crawford, please don't eat those.
Delicious.
And I say, they're delicious. And so we do a take, and Stuart goes, cut. What do you eat? What do you eat? And I said, well, I'm not eating anything, Stuart. I mean, there's a bite there, and I'm just minding it. And he goes, no. You have to eat something. I'm going, okay. So what do we have? And, then what do we have that's pink that we can put in there? And one of the special effects guys goes, well, I have some fix-it.
Yeah.
So Stu goes, yeah. Fill that hole, fix it in, and you bite into that, okay? Okay, let's go. Ready? Are we ready? Let's go. Action. And then, Crawford, please don't eat that. And I said, Stuart said, cut, wait. What are you doing? What is that? What are you doing? He said, oh, come on, it can't be that difficult. I mean, he said, look, I won't have any actor do anything that I wouldn't do myself.
How many times have you done that?
Yeah. So he took a big bite of fix-it-in, and he went, and he said, after he cleaned his mouth out about 10 minutes later, he goes, yeah, just mime it.
Now, did you do dolls after that because you felt you needed to?
No, he did dolls before that.
It was done before that, it was just released after?
Yes.
Okay, so was that then a conscious decision to sort of step back from the Lovecraftian stuff so you weren't pigeonholed a little bit?
It was so funny. I mean, this again goes back to Charlie Band, who runs, he now runs Full Mode. At the time, it was called Empire Pictures. And we were prepping From Beyond. We'd been prepping it for 6 months, and I get called to his office, and he says, Stuart, we have this other script here. It's called The Doll. Would you take a look at this? We'd like to make this one, too. We'd like you to direct it. And I said, oh, great. And I read it, and I liked it. And they said, when do you want to do it? He said, we'd like you to do it before From Beyond. And I said, well, we're ready to go with From Beyond. He said, well, this is just a little quickie. You can just knock this one out. And in typical, almost like Roger Corman style, they built the set so we could shoot both movies on the same set, back to back. We did Dolls in November, and we did From Beyond in February on the same set. And Dolls turned out to be a much more complicated picture than From Beyond was in a lot of ways. Trying to make these hundreds of dolls run around and so forth. Ended up involving puppetry and mechanical effects, and finally stop motion, which is why it was released later, because it literally took a year of post-production to complete. So, but I have to say that I've always been afraid of dolls. I remember when I was a little kid, some guy showing up in my house, and he was a ventriloquist, and he had a little suitcase, and he opened it up and took out a dummy, and I was out of that room so fast. And you know, one time.
What was he selling? Or was he just
No, he was
a one-man show?
No. He was a friend. I think he just brought over to entertain everybody. But it's like when this doll comes out of a box and starts talking to you, you know, it's like time to leave the room. Anyway.
Or put your head between your legs.
So, you know, the idea of doing anything about dolls was not difficult for me. I mean, it was, to me, it was not scary. Although our kids, you know, we shot the movie in Italy and they came to the set a couple of times. And I remember my daughter Jill, who I think was around 4 years old at the time, walks into a room and there's like literally 1,000 dolls in the room. And she goes, "Dad, are all these dolls bad?" And I said, "Yeah, they are." And it just says, "Even that one with the white buttons over there?" And I said, "Is that the one you want?" And she, so that one just fell into the bad crowd.
Originally, you were going to follow Re-Animator up with Dagon, is that correct? That was your plan?
It was. Yeah, Dagon was written as this, the next movie. And we showed it to Charlie Van, and he said, "People turning into fish? That's ridiculous."
Says the guy who makes puppet movies.
If they turned into puppets, I think he would have liked it better.
But you eventually did get to make Dagon, which is one of my absolute favorites. That movie gets under my skin like nothing else. I assume most people here have probably. I want to talk a little bit about that, some of the challenges, because you've got a set filled with water, you've got intense prosthetics, and the infamous skinning.
Right. You know, that was the scene where we were shooting that, and I said, I would leave at this point. This is the one I would leave. We got the effects guys that did it. We did the movie in Spain, and the effects guys was a guy named David Marty, and his company's called EDT, and they, about 2 years after we did Dagon, they won the Academy Award for Pan's Labyrinth. An amazing group of people, and were able to achieve you know, I think just mind-boggling effects. I mean, the scale of that movie was huge because we had a town full of mutants, monsters, people in different stages of transformation into fish, and they just dealt with it all. And the budget was not a huge budget. I have to say, you know, it was funny. We were talking earlier about getting the audience involved, and I think audiences really like to be put to work. I think audiences don't want everything done for them, and I kind of feel like so many of the movies you see nowadays are like these wall-to-wall CG effect movies where it's a very passive experience. You just kind of sit back and let this movie just kind of wash over you. It doesn't draw you in, it doesn't engage you, it doesn't. So I like movies that get the audience to kind of think, well, what would I do right now? How would I get out of this? Or what would, you know, or you just suggest something and let their imagination fill in the blanks. You know, I think when you're shown everything, when everything is shown to you, it takes away a lot of the fun for me of the movie. And so I'm a big believer in doing as much as you possibly can on the set with the actors, letting the actors create. Again, maybe it's theater, let the actors create the illusions, suggest things. Because a good actor, you know, like Jeffrey or Cecil or Carolyn, can make an audience believe anything. I would say that a good actor is the best special effect.
Absolutely. Well, let's put this audience to work a little bit. Who's got some questions? Right over there, please.
I came in a little late. I had discussed this already. What about the music that was done for Re-Animator?
The music that was done for Re-Animator.
Yeah, Richard Van did the music, and it was funny because I had said to him, I think, you know, we were talking about Bernard Herrmann. And I said, I think the music should be kind of Bernard Herrmann-esque, but never expected it would be Bernard Herrmann, period. And I think Richard did it as an homage, that's what he said, you know. It originally was supposed to say in the credits with apologies to Bernard Herrmann, but somehow that never made it into the end credits of the film. So we got a letter about 6 weeks after Re-Animator came out from the Bernard Herrmann estate saying, if Mr. Herrmann were alive, we would be suing you right now. So that's the story on that.
Right over there, please.
Hi, I was curious if any of you had ever seen the movie American Beauty, if you got a kick out of when they're talking about the movie Re-Animator.
Yeah, well, of course, we've seen it, and it was kind of a verification that Re-Animator had become kind of a touchstone in the zeitgeist of American or cinema culture, that it would actually be referenced in a movie and on purpose, because it's not just that they talk about Re-Animator a couple of times in that movie. There's also near the end visual homages to the living head scene. She's lying there, and cuts to him. He comes looming into the frame from the upper left-hand corner. It's like they knew exactly what they were doing there.
I remember Jeffrey calling me up and saying, "You got to go see American Beauty." And I said, "Why?" He goes, "You'll see."
Sorry, awesome.
But in a way, it was yet another. It was yet another way of attracting fans to Re-Animator, because of American Beauty's exposure and success. People, were interested in what's that, and so a whole other generation discovered Re-Animator because of that too.
So I saw a question right over there. Yes, sir.
Are you playing other Lovecraft films and time resources would you like to do?
The question is, what other Lovecraft film would you love to do?
Well, there's a project I've been trying to get made for 20 years based on his story, The Thing on the Doorstep, which is a great story. It's one of the only stories Lovecraft ever wrote that has a strong woman character in it, actually. How many of you have read that story just out of curiosity? It's a terrific story, but, Dagon took 15 years, this has taken 20 plus, and hopefully one of these days it will get made.
You, sir.
Question. My name is I'm from San Antonio, Texas, and I run a monthly movie quarterly called Thursdays, and actually Record is one of our sponsors. And I want to let you guys know, about 2 years ago, we showed a 35-minute Re-Animator, and just last month we showed From Beyond, and we had 2 screens at 7:30 and 10:45, and we sold out both screens at both events until 150.
At least with a huge support.
Yes, this is more for Jeff and perhaps Stuart. Can you talk a little more about how you developed the character of Herbert West? Did you reference some other kind? Did you actually say, well, this is my version of the mad scientist, or this is my version of a person just being a scientist, just going mad through the experience of the research?
Well, I don't think he does go mad. I think he's relentless in the pursuit of his work, and I think that the allure of Herbert West is that we all have to compromise, big and small, every day in our lives, and there's no way Herbert's doing that. And so people are really attracted to that kind of uncompromising pursuit of excellence, if you will. I didn't really come at it with any kind of inspiration or imitation of anything. I was just really fortunate to be in the right place at the right time, and with a great director, an absolutely phenomenal ensemble cast. It was cast so well, that movie, as well as shot well. Edited well, directed well. It was just every aspect making a movie is like going to war, and you have a battle plan, and then it goes to shit when it starts. But with this one, miraculously, so much was just spot on, and we were really lucky that way, weren't we? I mean, beginner's luck. You you make other projects, you think, oh, well, it all comes together. And then you realize as your career goes along, well, maybe not so much. So we were really, really just blessed. And
I would say one more thing about Herbert West, though, is that Herbert West has got a really wonderful dream. Herbert West is not a mad scientist. Herbert West, imagine he really could conquer death. I mean, this guy would be, on the cover of every magazine. He would be, Nobel Prize winner. I mean, this would be a huge, huge thing. And doctors we talked to said, it used to be that when someone's heart stopped beating, they were dead. Now we have all these different ways to get the heart started again. Give them drugs or defibrillation paddles, or there's all these different ways of getting someone back going again.
And one of the greatest things that Stuart did, and at the time I was sort of annoyed about it, was that he told Bruce and I, this is the best direction he could have given me. He told Bruce and I made an appointment for you to go down to the Los Angeles morgue. I was like, what? So we went down and we were met by this ghoulish guy who really took a really leery kind of delight in our shock, Paul, and dead bodies. It was like, but what it did was it real strong base relief for me. Seeing a dead body is, you realize how impossible it is to reanimate something that is gone. There's no aura there, there's no vibrancy, it's a cold, dead thing, and it's impossible. So what it did was it just lit the light in my head of just how miraculous this notion of actually bringing the dead back to life is, and nothing could have helped me more, actually.
Well, I'm a big believer in research, and having as much sort of first-hand experience as possible. Cecil and I, when we did the Titus Andronicus, took the whole cast to a meat packing plant to watch, how nonchalantly these guys would kill. And it was a very, very sort of strong experience. And it was, informed everybody, the actors that came away from that, very, kind of understanding of how, when killing becomes something that doesn't faze you, how that changes you.
And on that note, we're going to have to wrap things up. We could talk for days about all the great stuff, and there's tons of projects we can get to touch on. But the wonderful thing is, these guys are going to be here.
Yeah, well, here comes these.
Yeah, across the hallway. Right.